Hey guys, this is Subhashish Mishra, your test coach. Today we will learn different locators available in Protractor and how to find elements on a web page for Angular applications. So first let's understand what is locator. Locator is a technique to identify a web element uniquely within a web page. So before to that, why we need a locator? Let's go to our demo application which we will automate today. So let's go to Google and here you can search for Protractor tutorial. You can go to this protractortest.org and you can see, you can go to this website, demo website. Here is a super calculator which we have seen in our previous video also. We wanted to automate this one. So here we want to add two numbers and check if result is correct or not. For example, we will give 10 plus 20 and we will see the result is coming 30 or not. So this is how we test manually. So what and all we did manually, we opened our Chrome browser, then type the URL and then find this text box, then find enter some value like 10, then we identified the operation, like if we want to do addition, multiplication, division, whatever. Here we are doing the addition, then we identified this text box. Here we entered then again the second value, then we clicked on we identified this go button, then we clicked on this, then we got the result and then we want to verify that. Same thing we need to do in our automation also. In our last video, we learned how to launch the browser and navigate to this website and then verify the page URL and page title. So today we will add two numbers. How our automation will know where to enter the numbers for the addition. For example, you are entering some number here, right? So how your automation will know, how your automation code will understand here I need to enter some numbers or text or something like that. So that's why we need to identify the web elements. Once we identify them, we need to perform the action on that web element. In this case, we'll enter some number. So first we'll identify this text box, then we'll enter some number, then you can perform the action. That's why we need a locator, and locator is a technique to identify a web element uniquely within a web page. Anything that is present on the web page is a web element, such as text box, button, etc. So we use locators to identify elements in a web page, and once we locate those elements successfully, then we can perform the action by certain functions or methods. Actions are like click, enter text, etc. These are the two important things in UI automation. So how we are going to locate the elements in Protractor? Protractor supports two types of locators. One is Angular specific locators and other one is locators inherited from webdriver.Js. Let me show you. If we will go to Google and type Protractor API, let's go to this API documentation of Protractor, and then if we will go to the locators, you can see it here. Here is the locators, and these are the locators: add locator, binding, exact binding, model, button text, partial button text, repeater, exact repeater, CSS containing text, options, deep CSS. All these are Angular specific locators, whereas these class name, CSS, ID all are inherited from WebDriver.js. As you know, Protractor is a wrapper over WebDriver.js, so you can use all the functions of WebDriver.js and Protractor. So then Protractor exports two global functions. One is element and other one is element.all. So element functions finds a single element, whereas elements.all finds multiple elements. So how to find an element? Here I have a piece of code where you can see I have taken a variable ele, and in that what I am doing is I am using the element function, and in that I am passing a locator as a parameter. So always we need to pass the locator as a parameter in this element function, and then it returns an element finder. The function element is used to locate a single element. However, if you are looking for multiple elements, then you should use element.all function. So first of all, it's important to identify what is an element in end-to-end testing. Simply, an element is used to search for HTML element on the web page. It takes a locator and returns an element finder object, which can be used to interact with the element or get information from it. So the element takes one parameter, that is locator, which describes how to find the element. Then what is element finder? Element finder finds a single element based on the locator. So the element finder has a set of action methods such as send keys, which is used to enter text. Then there is a method as click, which is used to click on a button. Then we have a method as get text, which is used to get the text. We also use by keyword. So by is a collection of element locator strategies, like we use by.css, then we enter the locator, or by.model, then we have to pass the locators etc. So let's go to a web page and see how we can find an element using a locator. Let's go to our supercalculator web page, which we are using for our automation. You see all these text box, then drop down, button, all are element or objects. If you do a right click and then inspect in this text box, if we will do a right click and then inspect, here you can see something is highlighted, right? This one is the HTML code which is highlighted. In this HTML, input is the tag name, and ngModel, type, class, all are the attributes, and there is a value associated to that attribute. For ngModel attribute, the value is first. We will use these attributes to locate the elements. Let us go to first Angular specific locator, that is model. So the model locator identifies the element having the exact text associated with the ngModel attribute. ngModel attribute is an Angular locator. It locates the element by model attribute value given. Here you see the HTML code, and here you see the ngModel. So this tagline is representing one element in the web page. Here you can see ngModel attribute with value as first. So if ngModel is the attribute present in your HTML, you can use model locator. So how to use it? If you find a ngModel attribute, you can use element function. Here we are using the element function, then by.model, then pass the ngModel attribute value. So the value ngModel attribute value is this first. So we are passing it here, and then you send whatever text you want to send in that text box. So in our text box we wanted to send some number, so we are sending here as 15. So let me show you how you can do it. So let's go to our Visual Studio. So here what we will do is, earlier we have written one program that is fastest. So what we will do now is, let's just copy this and rename to, we will rename to supercalculator, and what we will do here is, we don't need, we only want one test case. So let me remove this. If you have not seen this how it is done, you can refer to the previous tutorial, you will able to understand how we have done this. So here we are trying to, we are doing addition of two numbers, or we are identifying first text box. That's what actually we are doing. Let's identify the first text box using the model locator. So first we will go to this URL, then we are maximizing the browser, then we will have some wait, then we will try to, will not put here wait, we will try to enter some. What we will do now is, we will go here, and again however I have told, if we will do inspect, you see this, and what we are seeing is ng model, as the ng model is present. So we will use ng model here. So how we will do that? We will go to our Visual Studio, we will write element, then by dot model, then we will use, what is the attribute name? First. So we will use first, then we will send, we will use send key method, send keys will send us 15, we want to add 15, then we will just add some slip here so we can see it. We don't need this one, let's save it, we want to execute this. So now our test case name is this, so we need to change the test case name in our conf file because this is different. Let's change it, save. Now let's go to our Protractor terminal and execute it. Let's see what it is happening. See, 15 is entered here. That's how you can use ng model locator, and you can identify the text box or any elements, then you can perform some action. Then the next locator is binding. Binding locator is used to locate the ngBind attribute with the given text value. It also helps in locating the text that is a partial match. If there is an attribute that has some matching with a given locator, then this element will be found by this locator, so the relevant matching elements are returned. Here you can see ngBind attribute with value as employee.email.id. If ngBind attribute is present in your HTML, you can use binding locator. How to use it? When you find a ngBind attribute, you can use element function, you can use this element function and then by dot binding and then pass the ngBind attribute value. Here we are passing employee.email.id because ngBind attribute value is that employee.email.id. Binding locator also helps in locating the text that is a partial match. So what we are doing here is, the complete value is employee.email.id, as it supports the partial match also. So if you are passing something like that employee.email, it also identify the element. So for binding you can give the complete value or you can give some partial value also. Similarly, we have another locator known as ExactBinding Locator. So the ExactBinding Locator is used to locate the ngbind attribute with the exact string or text value provided. It will not check for any partial matches in the text. Here we have also taken the same example and let us see how to use it. If you find a ngbind attribute, you can use element function and then by dot exact binding and then pass the exact value. You have to give the exact value here. If you will pass the partial value like employee.email and it will not work. You have to pass the exact value. So here the key thing we need to remember is binding will perform the partial match where exact binding will perform the exact match. Let us move to the next locator, repeater. Repeater is a locator which is used to find the element that has the attribute ng-repeat. It also helps in locating the text that is a partial match. If there is an attribute that has some matching with a given locator, then this element will be found by our locator. So the relevant matching elements are returned. Here you can see ng-repeat attribute with value as employee details. If ng-repeat is the attribute present in your HTML, you can use repeater locator. How to use it? So here you can see the HTML code. So tr represents row and td represents a column. So here we have one row having 3 columns like employee ID, employee name and salary. ID is the first column, second column is name and third column is salary. If you want to get the value of employee ID or name, we can use repeater locator. We can use element function, we can use this element function, then by dot repeater and then pass the ng-repeater attribute value. So what is the ng-repeater attribute value here? Employee underscore details. So we are passing here employee underscore details and then dot row of 0. So which row value we want to fetch? Here we want to fetch the ID, that is why we are giving row of 0. If you want to fetch the name of that, then you have to use dot row of 1. If you want to fetch salary, then you may have to do row of 2. That is how you can use repeater locator. Similarly, we have one more locator which is known as exactRepeater. The exactRepeater locator identifies the element having the exact text associated with the attribute ng-repeat. It will not check for any partial matches in the text. Here also we have taken the same example. Then how to use it? If you find a ng-repeater attribute, if you see a ng-repeater attribute, we can use element function. We have to use the element function. Then by dot exactRepeater, you have to write exactRepeater. There you are using only repeater, here you are passing the exactRepeater and you have to give the exact attribute name employee underscore details. If you will pass something like this, like employee, only employee, it will not work. Here you need to pass the exact match. Whatever the repeater attribute value, you have to pass the exact value. So repeater will perform the partial match where exactRepeater will perform the exact match. That is the key thing to remember in repeater and exactRepeater. Then we have the next locator is Buttontext. The Buttontext locator finds a match with an element having the same text of the button tag or inside the sub element of the tag. Here you see the HTML code, and here we do not have any HTML attribute, we have only text, that is check result. We will find the element using this text. We will use this check result text and we will find the element. How we will do that? You can use again the element function and then by.Buttontext and then pass the exact value, whatever value you are seeing, right, check result, same value you need to pass, and then you perform the action. We are performing the action, we are performing the click operation here. Similarly, we have another locator is known as partial button text locator. The partial button text locator finds a match with an element that contains the part of the text, that is partial match in the button tag or inside the sub element of the tag. How to do that? We have again taken the same example. You can use element function and you need to use by.partialButtonText. So here the full value is check result, here we are giving the partial value, that is check, and then we are performing the action. So the main thing is here you can pass any partial value, whatever the text is there, you can give some partial value, you can give also a result, it will work. In place of check you can give result, any partial values you can give. Then we will move to our next locator, which is CSS containing text. The CSS containing text locator finds the element by CSS having the specific text string, that is it combines the function of the CSS locator and the text element locator to identify the element. CSS is known as cascading style sheets and it is defined to display HTML in structured and colorful styles are applied to web page. In CSS there are two special characters which has important role to play. One is dot, one is hash. So dot refers to a class whereas hash refers to a ID. Here you can see the HTML code, which means we have a user list and this user list contains a list of items. So there are two pets, you can see one is dog, one is cat, and we will try to identify this dog. Here we have an attribute class. Sometime maybe you will find attribute as ID, but here anyway we have the attribute as class. So how we will do that? You can use the element function and then by dot css containing text, so element function, then by dot css containing text, then we are using dot pet. Why we are using dot? Because dot refers to a class and here we have a class, that's why we are using dot pet. If in place of class you will find a ID something like this, then we can use hash. So what it means, when there is a class or ID attribute having value as pet and it contains dog value, it will give dog. So that's what we understand from this, right? When there is a class or ID attribute, here we have a class attribute having value as pet, here we have the value as pet and it contains dog value, it contains this dog value. So we are getting the value as dog, we are identifying the element using CSS containing text. Then we have a locator known as options. The options locator identifies the element associated with attribute ngOption. This is mostly used in drop down and list boxes. If there is a drop down, we see a select tag inside HTML. and inside select tag there will be multiple options. Here you can see, right, here is the HTML code, there is a select tag and there are multiple options inside it having some value, like here we have the options like red color and green color. Here we have an attribute named as ng options with value as different colors. How to use option locator? Here we have multiple options, these are the two options and every option is representing to one element. First option is red, second option is representing to green. So here we will use element.all. So you know element.all function will find all elements, and after using element.all we can do by.options, then different color is coming from this text, whatever this ng option attribute text, you can pass the same value. Here we have a variable all options, we are storing it in all options. Then what we are trying to do, we are trying to calculate the how many total options are there, all options dot count function. Then I am just doing the validation whether it is true or not. Here you can see two options, I am just trying to validate two options. Then we have a first option as a variable where we are using first function and we are taking the we are finding the text what is present inside that. So it will be red because we are taking the first value. So that's how you can use options locator. So here we have few locators which are inherited from webdriver.Js like ID, name, class name, tag name, partial link test, CSS and XPath, and here are few examples how you can use it. You can use the HTML, you can see the HTML and from there you can find the attribute name and attribute value. So for example, if you can use by.id and what is that ID attribute value, if it is site then you can use something like this. Again similarly by.name, this is the attribute name, you can use like that. So these are the different locators we learned for Protractor. Thank you. Thank you. Please like, share and subscribe my channel.